The East Bay Township Board to order on Monday, February 10th at, like I said, 6:34. And we'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join me. The Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and we'll do roll call attendance.
Lyle?
Here.
Bartlett?
Here.
S. Cortade?
Here.
M. Cortade?
Here.
Cook?
Here.
Walters?
Present.
And Friend.
Here. All right, with that, we will look for a review for conflict of interest on the agenda. Our agenda before us, on the consent agenda, you do have items of the Cherry Ridge Cell Tower, Sixth Amendment to the site lease. You have full and part-time offers of employment for East Bay Ambulance, 2% grant awards, there are 3 of them within that section, Manor Casterison engagement letter, the election assistant offer of employment, and the service window proposal. On our regular agenda for discussion is the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund Acquisition Fund with the Land Conservancy, as well as the Economic Development Strategy that Traverse Connect has drafted, job descriptions for office manager, communication specialist, intern, as well as 2025 water and sewer rates. Does anyone have any conflict to declare? Okay, with that, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Is there anything a member of the board would wanted added, removed, or fine with the agenda and there's a motion?
I'd like the election assistant offer to be pulled from the consent agenda.
Oh, okay, we'll do that in 1 second when we're going over the consent agenda. This is
Sorry.
Nope,
I was
you're just a step ahead.
Paying attention to the
Yep.
computer.
Nope. Is there any suggested additions to the agenda, or are we fine with this agenda? And there's a motion.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Okay, motion is made by Cook and supported by Bartlett. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We will move on to public comment. This is the opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Okay, seeing none this evening, we'll move on to correspondence and reports. You do have quite a few things in your correspondence and reports. The road commission updates for the month of January, the intent to renew for charter communications. I have reached out to the other townships that are involved with that franchise to see if they would like to speak with the attorney that we used last time. But that letter, it's very initial, 3 years out, is in your board packet. Some follow-up from the previous meeting, the 2% tribal awards, the Metro Awards Banquet, TTCI packet excerpt, which shows the projects that were approved through TTCI, eCities information, then you have the December and January treasurer's report, the February 10th clerk's report, and the January meeting log for the supervisor, as well as links to other board meetings that we have had in the past month or so. Any questions or anything on those items? Okay. If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. And Ann, would you go over the consent agenda?
Sure. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of this board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent agenda be removed and placed elsewhere for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent agenda, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. This evening you have minutes, January 13th, 2025, regular meeting minutes, recommend approval. Checks from the general fund, check numbers 19297 through 19357, paid in the amount of $787.86 with check number 19342 voided, and check numbers 18864, 19169, 19176, and 19261 previously approved. From the emergency fund, check numbers 5822 through 5848 paid in the amount of $18,075.91. Check number 5826 voided and reinstating voided check number 5778. Receiving fund, check numbers 2964 through 2965 paid in the amount of $7,920. The escrow fund, check numbers 2060 through 2066 paid in the amount of $11,135.40. There were no checks from the roads SAD fund, and there were two payrolls, first dated December 29th, 24 through January 11th of 25, check number 7893 through 7896, and it totaled $75,955.08. Payroll dated January 12th through January 25th, check numbers 7897 through 7899, totaled $73,406.35, and included $12,817.11 for payroll tax. Payroll check number 7797, issued in November 2024, was lost, voided, and number 7900 was issued as a replacement. The total payroll amount was $149,361.43, and total amount paid $269,280.60. I don't have any proposed budget adjustments, and there are 6 other items: the Cherry Ridge Cell Tower, 6th Amendment to the site lease, East Bay Ambulance, part and full-time EMS offers of employment, 2% grant awards, receive and approve payments, Manor Casterison engagement letter, elections assistant offer of employment, and a service window proposal.
Okay, very good, thank you. Would any member of the board like anything removed from the consent agenda?
Now I'll ask to have number 5 removed.
Okay, is there anything else?
Number 2.
Number 2. Anything else?
I don't know where it falls in here, but
Sure.
the TTCI?
Sure. Oh, that's actually in our correspondence and reports.
Okay. All
So
right.
if you-
I had a question about it, I don't know.
Sure, okay. Well, let's get through the consent agenda and we can address that question real quick. So any other items for the consent agenda to be removed? Okay, we will remove those 2 items. We will place them as E and F. Actually, we've got a staff member here, so let's go ahead and do number 2 just before A, so that you can get out of here before your children are 16. And then we'll put item 5 as E, okay? All right. With that, is there anything that the public would like removed or changed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll bring that back for a motion. That would be for the consent agenda as presented, with removing items H2 and H5.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Okay, motion is made by Walters and supported by Cook. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call. Ann?
Walters.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Escortade.
Yes.
Lyle.
No.
Bartlett.
Yes.
M. Cortade.
No.
I'll vote yes.
Oh, friend, yes. Sorry about that.
Okay, great, thank you, Ann. All right, with that, we will move on to our business before the Township Board. And as I mentioned, we have a staff member here, so we're going to take the East Bay Ambulance part and full-time offers of employment first. How are you tonight, Nick?
Fantastic. Doing well.
Well, good. I can't even remember who pulled this off, but why don't you just do an overview?
Glenn did.
Okay.
So, yeah, as we move into the summer, we have a couple part-time offers, and I think I talked about that as we're going to staff that second truck up 7 days a week instead of the 4. We're going to need to add more part-time staff to do that. So that's the 2 part-time offers. Both are experienced providers in our area, in our county. One's an EMT, one's a paramedic. And then for our full-time offer, We have Catherine, who's decided to take a EMS coordinator job with another agency in town, which is great. Sad to see her go, but obviously support anybody trying to excel their career. So we did a posting. We had 6 applicants, which is kind of unheard of for a paramedic position, at least here in town. We did interview 5 people. We did, that offer is to Melissa, who is a current part-time employee and has been for the last 2 years with us. And I think she'll fit that spot well.
Okay, very good, thank you. Did you have a specific question?
No, I just wanted to understand what exactly was going on.
Trying to assume, for sure. Yeah, and like I said, we'll probably have some more part-time offers as we move forward, just because we've lost a couple. Obviously, Melissa was working 24 hours a week, and we're going to have to fill that spot, as well as the Mike Sheets resigning. We're going to have to fill his shifts that he was working, so we're probably going to have a couple more as we move forward. It's just part of the growth.
Are we running both ambulances now or no?
No. So the plan is, come this summer, we're going to run the 2 trucks 7 days a week, 9 to 5, or 9 to 9, and then the other truck will be on 24 hours a day, just like it is now. So right now, the second truck is ran as needed when we have the staff to be able to do that, but we don't staff that truck. It's kind of like the backup truck, and I'll get it sometimes and respond on a backup side of things and have Metro drive sometimes if we need to. But as of right now, no, we're not running both trucks all the time.
We haven't budgeted for that. This past year is when we budgeted, I think, 5 months in?
Yeah, I think
For the summer?
it was 4 months,
4
and it
months?
was 4 days a week,
Right.
9 to 9.
And you keep, and the third one, we still got, right?
Yep, we still have it.
And that's just a backup?
Just the backup to the backup, because more than once we've had both trucks go down for various
Right.
mechanical issues.
Okay.
Just the luck of the draw.
One of the things I wanted to mention, I got a chance to talk to Nick about it today, was the fact that we had 6 applicants for a paramedic position, which really speaks to the fact, while I would like to say it's, because it's East Bay Township, or it's because it's this board, or, any one of us, it's not. We don't interact with them on a daily basis. It's really Nick who operates and sets the tone over there with the employees and kind of the culture of East Bay Ambulance. And it's a very small world in the paramedic and EMT world, and that word gets around so that they enjoy the atmosphere and like the work and so forth, so.
And just to
that's
put
a
it in
compliment.
context, there's currently, granted, there are firefighter, paramedic positions open, but there's currently 26 open within Leelanau and Grand Traverse County. So for us to get 6 applications that are all experienced paramedics is kind of unheard of. So then that's thanks to you guys for all your support too.
So 26 paramedics?
Firefighter, paramedic positions. A lot of paramedics, but a lot of these fire departments would take paramedics because they
Right.
can't get the firefighters.
Wow.
So with that, would you like to make the motion to
I'd make a
approve?
motion to approve the part-time and full-time EMS officers.
Support.
Okay. The motion is made by Lyle and supported by Walters. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you all.
Thank you for being here. Okay, with that, we will move on to the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy DNR acquisition. Do you need just a little bit more time? We'll go on to another item.
When, because our PowerPoint presentation isn't working, most of the information in here is also in your packet. There's just some additional visuals. Glenn ran to get large boards we had printed out.
Oh, okay.
So if we could,
Yeah, we can do that. Does anyone have any objection to that? Okay, we'll move on to the next item and then come back. So, Claire, we have Traverse Connect, East Bay Township Economic Development Strategy on here. And I'll just kick it off and then let Claire pop in. But you'll recall that we had Traverse Connect before us in February. We heard their presentation, we approved their contract, and in there, you'll recall it said if we had any specific needs that we would identify those in writing with them. That same week, Claire was in touch with them to talk about the RRC required economic development strategy, and so they we're happy to help us work on that and provided the draft that's before you as well. I will mention too, there are a couple other things going on in our area, and one is the county is looking at kind of a county development strategy, and that came out of a series of 7 meetings with Traverse Connect and the Grand Traverse County and all the municipalities, villages, city, townships. And that report is now with the EDC and will be making its way through, but that is one that they hope to have concurrence from all the municipalities in the township. So that's as well going on. It's very similar things and aligns. Traverse Connect is obviously working on them both. So you'll see some similarities there. And then Networks Northwest is working on a community economic development strategy that is much larger in region, several counties, but that's a little bit distant off yet for us to see or for them to have any culmination. They're just having the meetings now. So those are just some other strategies that are being discussed and proposed at this time. But right now for us, in front of us is the draft economic development strategy. Did you want to say anything else about it, Claire?
Good evening. So there's only 2 changes that have been made since the last time you reviewed it. One was based on the comment that Mindy had, and Mindy, hopefully this addressed it, was just clarifying that we had 2 site plans that had been approved. There's kind of a cluster of businesses around Bayside Market and some interest in some of those property owners on kind of a mixed-use development. So added a caveat, just kind of explaining that there's 2 site plans that have been approved that are moving forward. But as we know, oftentimes you'll get a site plan approved and then it won't move forward. It will go through, a portion, get some of the approvals, some of the water and sewer permitting, and then, break ground and not move forward. So we did still think that this is kind of a unique location where there's a lot of parcels that are kind of prime for redevelopment. So we wanted to keep that in there as an opportunity, but still have that caveat that there's a couple developments moving forward. And then the only other one that we included was exploring a corridor improvement authority under the implementation, and that refers back to some of the discussions we've had with the Beach District, as well as it was included in our master plan. So taking a look at that and just wanting to have all of those plans consistent with one another. So beyond that, I don't think Camille received any other specific feedback. This plan does meet all of the RRC requirements, so that will be another item checked off. For this coming year, we're also planning to work with Traverse Connect to do like a marketing and communications plan, and that's another one that will check off an RRC requirement. So these are two strategies that are required for RRC certification, and also just kind of broadly helpful for the township and moving forward. And this economic development strategy is something that can be updated over time, because it will, in a couple years, it will need some updating. So it kind of provides us with a basis that we can, as staff, just go in and update it.
Living document.
Yeah. And actually, I think, now that I think about it, Traverse Connect contract includes updating the strategy. So I think that this is something that they will continue to assist us with updating.
Okay, are there any questions for Claire, or is there a motion to approve the East Bay Charter Township Economic Development Strategy 2025?
Can I just ask a
Sure.
question? You mentioned all those other entities that are working on similar stuff. Would any of those meet the RRC requirements for East Bay?
I don't believe so. I think this
It has to be East Bay's portion. Okay, that's what I thought, but
Yeah,
I'd
I
ask.
don't think the counties is specific enough, broken out enough that they would allow it to meet it.
Yep.
That might be something a community does potentially, maybe a particularly smaller community in another area, but yeah, I don't believe so. And there are some similar things, as I mentioned, Traverse Connect's working on them both. So, for example, corridors, they focus on in that document that they're drafting, and corridors are mentioned in this as well.
I think the biggest thing with this one is just that it has site-specific, so we kind of
Which is
drill down into the
What we really
specific.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be able to use, yeah.
Glenn?
Yeah, believe it or not, I read through the whole thing.
Did you? Good job.
The one thing, and I understand about traffic calming both on the highway and Hammond Road. But my question is, what is the outlook when that happens? And that, we're probably talking years away. How are they gonna move the traffic around Traverse City? Has anybody looked at that? Because right now, Hammond Road is taking a blunt because you can't get through on Airport Road. So everybody's running Hammond, and they're running, speed limit's 45, 55, they're running 60 through there. If we put traffic calming islands, whatever they're called, through there, you're gonna slow the traffic down, you have to. If you got people crossing, you gotta slow it down. What are they gonna do with traffic? Has anybody with the big picture looked at how you're gonna move traffic around Traverse? Because basically, that's what Hammond Road does now.
Yeah, so I guess from a non-traffic engineer, I would say, I think a lot of communities have successfully done traffic calming and still kept the volumes. So, when I look at like the Parkway, for example, there's significant volume going through there. That's a state highway, but it feels a lot different than, other portions of US 31 and 72. So I think that's a good point, and that's something to continue to look at, especially with all the residential development and increase in traffic volumes that we've seen and that we'll probably expect to see. But I do think that you can keep the same volume and still have some kind of context-sensitive design where you've got, safe crossings, and because even with increase in traffic counts, it's becoming kind of from suburban to more urban. And so as it becomes a little bit more urban, then you have an expectation of, multi-modes and needing to kind of.
Yeah, I'm not an engineer, but that's the
Yeah.
first thing that hit me, because even when I go to Home Depot now, a lot of times I'll take Hammond Road and go just because you can't get across Airport Road. And when you start building out and calming, it starts backing traffic up, and
So-
that was my thought anyhow.
Two
I thought it was pretty interesting. But that's the two questions. That's the first thing that hit me when I read the whole thing through, is
Yeah.
what you're gonna do with that. But
So two places where they are considering those things and taking a look at the total picture. One is, I would mention to you the East-West Corridor study that the Grand Traverse County Road Commission did, about 2019-ish. I think they culminated with that process, and they came up with some conclusions. Now, they started to implement those. They've kind of slowed that down, and I don't know if that's their analysis on the conclusions or if that's a function of funding or what, but they did implement some of those, and I think you'll see they are traffic calming while still moving traffic. And I would say the best examples are the 4 Mile roundabout, the roundabouts on Keystone. They're still moving a large volume of traffic, but you do slow down when you go through them. So that's part of the design and how you, instead of having an either or, you try to build the two together. The other is the MPO. Now remember, the MPO is new. We're really in our first year. And so we just went through our first round of releasing requests for proposals. The technical committee went through, analyzed them, recommended projects to the policy board. The policy board completed them. But specifically, we had a member who was asking about, flow of traffic and getting traffic from one side to the other. They'll actually, in the next few months, hear a presentation from the Road Commission about that East-West Corridor study. But there are other functions where the Road Commission are interacting with municipalities and trying to tackle those issues. So, let's see, with that, are there any other questions? Or is there a motion to approve the strategy for 2025?
Is it for 2020, 2025 or 2024? Because the header says 2024, but the front page says 2025.
Be 2025. We'll just have them correct the header.
Okay.
They probably
It'll become outdated slower if we.
Yeah.
I have a feeling they used the header from a previous report,
I'll
so.
move to approve the East Bay Charter Township Economic Development Strategy 2025.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, there is a motion by, thank you, Walters, and support by Lyle. Are there any further discussions? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? Okay, motion passes with M. Corte dissenting. Okay, with that, we will move on
Can I
to,
just ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
It wasn't necessarily pertaining to this. How are we doing on the RRC?
We're getting close.
Just, we've been working on it for a long time, and which it's a lot of stuff,
Yeah,
but
so I'd say the heavy lift at this point, because the zoning ordinance was a huge bulk of them.
Yeah.
So we've got all that taken care of. We've got all the master plan. We've got our public participation plan. The capital improvement program, which I think we've got our
Yep.
kickoff meeting next week. So we're going to be moving forward with that. I'd expect within the next several months, we'll have that, at least a draft of that. And then the other kind of heavier lift is just all of our forms and kind of the guides. And we also have our guide for redevelopment, which is another big one that Giffords Webster has helped us put together. So, but just kind of the forms, boards and commissions, kind of those operating procedures. And so Sam's been working with Beth and I on putting those together. But we're getting very close. The marketing and communications plan is another one that Traverse Connect is helping us with this year. So our goal is before the end of this year to have that certification finalized.
okay. I
yeah,
was
when
just
you,
curious.
yeah, when you hear those communities are RC certified, that is a lot of work that those communities go through with MEDC. And I think, do you have that in your reports too, in your quarterly reports? I think you might mention it as well. So we, if you ever forget where we're at, we can always refer back to, yeah. So, no, there's a lot to be covered there. And I apologize, Matt. I forgot to mention the TTCI when we went straight off the consent
Oh, yeah, no
agenda.
worries.
But we were mentioning TTCI, so what was your question?
I was just curious, we didn't, I don't recall seeing the list of the planned projects.
That was the first I had seen it at the TTCI meeting.
Okay. I thought we heard in the update, in the quarterly update from the road commission, which would have been at the last meeting, that the town line road overlay would not require township participation. Did I mishear
I
that?
saw that too.
Because they've got it
and I'm
listed
like,
Do
here.
they have that in there? I didn't
Yeah.
look to that part of it. I have talked with them and mentioned that, okay, now they don't need the township participation, and I haven't heard anything about that, so I'll go back with them and talk with them and clarify that. But no, I haven't had them request that, mention that, any of those things.
I saw
so.
that too. It's only in one place, I think, that it says something in township, and then everywhere else, it's like millage and,
It could have
So-
been, again, it could have been a leftover because they
Yeah.
probably changed that from a much larger project down to the smaller one, where they were going to have township funds in there. But I know when they did change it, and I was talking with admin over there, I was like, oh, okay, so you don't need funding for that, so we'll have to look at what other roads. And I don't know if they just didn't want to tell me, or if they.
well, and I think I asked
Did you?
Larry last month, and he said no.
Oh, okay.
We wouldn't need
That's what I
to
thought I heard.
participate. Yeah, because I thought I had asked that,
Oh, good.
or at least it was in my head to ask it.
Yeah. So, yeah, so then likely that's a leftover from changing it, yeah.
Yeah, and then they have that listed for the 2025 projects, and then on the next page, they've got 2026. They've got another project on the same section of Town Line Road as a post-reconstruction chip seal, so I don't,
That's because what they've been doing is, what best practices are is once they redo a road or
Yeah.
private, they come back and do that chip seal over it.
Okay.
To extend the life of it. Although I know that they're not super excited about that fix because they don't feel like it'll last long. As a matter of fact, I thought it was a 5 to 10 year last. And when I inquired on that update, they were like, no, there's no way. It's 5 to 10 year. That's a 3 to 5 year.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you sure you want me to put that in print? And they're like, yes. So,
okay. That's all I had.
okay. Thank you. All right, with that, we will backtrack to the DNR Trust Fund. Glenn Chown is here with the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, and Charlie, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name right now. McDonald. So Charlie McDonald is here. Claire, if you'll just kind of do a kickoff as to where they've been to with the different boards and commissions.
Okay, so many of you might be aware of this project, but it's a super exciting opportunity to preserve over 300 acres within our urban growth boundary. And there's some cool opportunities, for, as you'll hear more about, for some trail connections to existing trails, existing natural areas, particularly the Tart Trail and Holiday Woodlands Preserve. So Charlie came in front of the Parks Commission the end of January and came in front of the Planning Commission. So both of those commissions unanimously recommended that the Township Board adopt a resolution this evening for submitting an application to the trust fund for the purchase of the development rights, so purchasing the conservation easement. So, and then I did want to mention Mindy had some questions last week about just specifically the development parcel. So it was discussed that there's a portion, 300 and about 30 acres that will be the purchase of the conservation easement, but there's a carved out area that will be about 6 acres that I believe Glenn will speak in more detail, but Mindy, we did get a copy of that map, so hopefully that's helpful as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Glenn and Charlie.
Thank you, Claire. And thank you for inviting us to be here. We're really excited about this project. It's groundbreaking for the whole state of Michigan, as Beth knows, because the Natural Resources Trust Fund statute, and it's in the Constitution, allows for grants to acquire land fee simple, like Holiday Woodlands or Jens Park, through acquisition grants granted to governmental entities, local units of government too, but it also allows for units of government to acquire rights in land. So East Bay Township can acquire a conservation easement, which is not an ownership interest. But a conservation easement is a tool that's used to extinguish development rights. And you can appraise the value of a conservation easement with a before and after appraisal. A lot of farmland in the region has been protected through conservation easements, thousands of acres, as a matter of fact. So when we originally started talking to Beth and Claire about the potential for this project, we realized that the management challenge of this large area that we're going to be talking about, over 330 acres, we came up with really a creative plan where the Conservancy would own the land as a nature preserve open to the public for recreational use, and the township would buy a conservation easement which would guarantee that forever there could be no residential or commercial development on the land. And the easement can guarantee public access forever on the property. We've done this with the DNR, Arcadia Dunes in Benzie County, Greenpoint Dunes are preserves that the Conservancy owns, and in these cases, the DNR purchased a conservation easement. So We talked to the trust fund board late last year. We talked to the trust fund staff and said, hey, if we can do this creative approach with the DNR, why not with local units? And they said, absolutely. Local units could do the same thing. And what's great about this project, it's a way that there can be a private-public partnership, not only to protect the property, but for the private sector to assume the responsibilities to steward the property forever, just like we do with all of our nature preserves. So that's a little background. I'm excited about this. I know the trust fund is excited. I've talked to the trust fund board. I've talked to the trust fund staff. And they're really grateful that the Conservancy in East Bay Township have such a strong partnership and a track record of success over the years that we're willing to consider going this route.
Can I clarify something?
Yes.
So when Glenn started talking about this piece of property and was able to secure the upfront funding to retain it so that it didn't go to a development, he talked to me about and Claire about just the acquisition, the traditional route that we went with, Holiday Woodlands Natural Area.
Correct.
And I presented an issue with Glenn and said, Glenn, I don't know how much property we can take on and manage as a township. We have limited resources. And so while Glenn gives some credit in his comments, I want to make sure you know that it was a problem that I presented that Glenn took on the challenge to solve and, came up with doing this from experience with doing it with the state. And I really appreciated him hearing those concerns and coming up with a process that would allow us to get to the end goal while acknowledging that, there are some challenges. And so that we don't overextend ourselves.
Exactly. So that's the backdrop, but the other backdrop, go back 14, 15 months, and the Conservancy in the last year has actually purchased 2 parcels, 220-acre property from the Send family, which was the first purchase, which was completed in March of last year. We had 45 days to come up with $5.5 million. And we had to make a decision in 48 hours. So we were fortunate that the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation made a $5.1 million loan, subject to interest, but to give us 3 years to buy us some time so that we could raise dollars privately and hopefully publicly, because they fully expect us to pay them back. In fact, they have a lien on that property. So our goal is to pay off that mortgage. And when that happens, this property truly will be protected forever. So why did we step in? Well, there was a proposal to rezone the Send property from its current zoning, which is 5 units per acre, which would have been about 1,100 homes, to a higher density that could have been as much as 1,700 homes. So why should the Conservancy care so much about this particular property? Well, the ridge rises 300 feet above East Grand Traverse Bay. And probably, I don't know if any of you have been on the top of that property, but if you are on the top of that property, 300 feet above East Bay, you can see all the way to Sugarloaf Ski Resort, 19 miles away, next to Sleeping Bear Dunes. And you can see all the way up East Bay as far as Charlevoix on a very clear day. All of Old Mission and much of Leelanau County and all of Traverse City. It's one of the most jaw-dropping views in all of northern Michigan, and I would argue it may be the best view, and I've seen a lot of them, including views up and down the coast of Lake Michigan. But what's beautiful about this view is you're not just looking at water, which is wonderful in and of itself, but you're looking at this incredible landscape, these peninsulas, these two bays that really define our area. The other thing so it's not just because this is a scenically important property, it's also an ecologically significant property. We surveyed 12,000 parcels in our 5-county service area, which is Manistee, Benzie, Grand Traverse, Kalkaska, Antrim, that are 20 acres in size or more for their ecological characteristics, for their importance to water quality. And we ranked them. We scored them and ranked them. And we picked the top 100, the top 1% of these 12,000 parcels. The Ridge is in the top 1%. It's got bald eagles nesting. It's got 66 acres of wetlands, including perched wetlands that are unique in the entire state of Michigan. It's got 3,330 feet of Baker's Creek frontage. So if you look at this map, and if you care about drinking water, and I know we all do, I know we all care about East Bay. Of course, this township has led for years in the protection of the Mitchell Creek watershed, and we've worked together on that. Traverse City gets its drinking water near the mouth of Mitchell Creek, a little bit toward this, in this direction to the west. 40,000 residents are served by this intake for their drinking water. So when a raindrop falls anywhere in here, it's going to end up eventually at the mouth of this creek. What's unique about this property, which is, so the original 220 is here, and then we bought 90 acres from Sally and Kristen Erickson, the daughters of Dick Erickson, who developed Portable Mission, an old mission. In fact, this map isn't quite accurate. It actually extends all the way to the railroad tracks, the Erickson property. So this property is like the Continental Divide. Raindrop falls on this side, it goes into the Baker's Creek watershed and then directly into East Bay over here. Raindrops that falls on this side of the property ends up going into the Mitchell Creek watershed and going out at the mouth of Mitchell Creek next to the state park. So when you have a steep property rising 300 feet above the bay with steep slopes, that's why it's so visually and prominent. Any sort of development with impervious surfaces, there's going to be flash runoff in rain events and snow melt. So protecting this property, keeping the forest cover, is actually protecting the water quality of East Grand Traverse Bay. So it's important for ecological values. There's bald eagles nesting on this property. It's important for watershed protection values. And the third thing, you've got your map here showing the location of the property in red. It's directly across 5 miles of Holiday Woodlands, which then connects eventually into other trail systems through the Mud, Sweat, and Beers pathways that they've worked out with private landowners. And it can also then connect to the west and some of the properties eventually that we have acquired, like the Rapid Preserve and of course the Conservation Center just across the street down the road here. So this could be an important hub, and then of course it connects directly to the TARP trail, either crossing the railroad tracks or going in through the neighborhoods just to the east of the property. It's the name of the road? Avenue Road. Yep, yeah. So this property has an opportunity to really expand recreation opportunities in the township. And of course, as Charlie has noted in your rec plan, top priority?
Yeah, so, if you go to the map, not to go through the whole thing, but the 5-year rec plan, which was just last year, the number one goal the number one goal in that plan is enhance quality of life by creating recreation spaces that contribute to the well-being and quality of life of all. Number 2 is preservation of natural resources by protecting and preserving natural areas, green spaces, and wildlife habitat within the community.
So it checks all the boxes. So what's the request here? Our goal to protect both the Erickson and the Sen properties, so that's 312 acres, is to raise slightly less than $11 million to cover the acquisition price, the financing prices, the short-term stewardship for the infrastructure to create a trail system, to create an overlook at the top of the ridge, a platform, and to endow the stewardship so that the Conservancy will always be able to maintain this property in exemplary fashion so that we will all be proud of our investment in 100 years and 500 years. So our goal is to raise just less than $11 million total. So our request for the township would be to apply for a trust fund grant of $4.5 million for the acquisition side, and then what, about 85,000 to cover all of your incidental costs, which the trust fund allows reimbursement so that the township will be out of pocket in terms of incurring expenses. You will be reimbursed by the trust fund grant under what we're proposing here. So that $4.5 million would be matched by nearly, let's see, do my math, $6.5 million in private funds, which we're off to a good start. We've raised, what about nearly $4 million in private funds. So we're covering 100% of the local match requirement, and we're proposing that we bring at least 40% match based on the value of this conservation easement, which we're estimating to be about $8 million. We're going to bring 40% plus so we can maximize our match points on the trust fund application. So that's the rough plan, and that's what the resolution is all about that's in front of you. And as it relates to the 6 acres, the Conservancy recognizes that there's more needs in the community than just conservation and recreation. We know that's a priority for citizens, particularly citizens in this township. But we also know there are housing needs. So when we were originally looking at the Sen property, we thought maybe some of the land on the east side of the Sen property or along 5 Mile might be suitable for appropriate housing. But the more we looked at it, there's no sewer and water in that particular area, but there is sewer and water right up close to the entrance to the Erickson property as shown on your map. And it's a much more logical place to have housing, and plus 4 acres of the 6 acres on your map there was disturbed is disturbed ground. It's where the Erickson family, for many years, would put their fill dirt from their construction of the condos at Porterville Mission. They would take the fill when you're digging a foundation, and they'd spread it on that 4 acres. So there's really no significant ecological value to that 4 acres. And the Conservancy believes in balance. We're not trying to save every acre, we're trying to save the best of the best. So in talking to Beth and Claire, what we're proposing is that that 6 acres not be included in the trust fund grant, that we exclude it, and that we work with private entities, private developer, to maybe put up to 30 homes, single-family residences, clustered on the 4 acres that is disturbed ground. It's flat. It's actually perfectly suited to housing. It's close to sewer and water. It's close to trail systems. And then we'd take 2 acres and use that as buffer around the developed area. So that's what we show on the map. We haven't surveyed it, so we don't have exact boundaries. But based on aerials and actually working on the ground, that's roughly, it's a polygon. And obviously what we're trying to maximize there is concentrate the housing on the disturbed 4 acres, roughly 4 acres.
And you're talking about this area?
Yes,
And the
it's
green.
the area, the light-colored area,
And the
which
green.
is, yep,
Okay.
in the
That's what I
green.
thought, but
We don't have detailed plans. It's going to take probably a couple of years of planning. We have a board subcommittee that's now working on it. It's headed up by Ray Kendra, who's the architect that designed the Conservation Center. He's a member of our board now. And we want to do it the right way. We want to be thoughtful, but the Conservancy is not a developer.
Right.
We, the Conservancy, won't be developing that property, but we'll be partnering, and ultimately we'll be selling that property once there's an appropriate plan put together in concert with East Bay Township, your planner, the Planning Commission, and ultimately this Township Board. So that process will take time, and we're excited about it. We think it could be a real model and of showing that development can occur in the right locations, conservation can occur where the sensitive, important watershed and recreation areas are, and they can occur side by side and literally enhance each other. So again, I think this will be a model project, not just for East Bay Township, but for the whole region. So we're pretty excited about that and the opportunity that that provides. So that's kind of the background. Charlie, what did we miss? Did I miss anything?
No, you got it.
Okay, I think we can open it up for questions.
I guess one clarification is just a verbal update to the resolution. The actual boundaries, you'll notice like some of the maps differ from each other. And if you go to this map, which is your general context map, the red is...
This one right here, it's in your...
Yep, the Send and the Erickson property, the acquisitions. And then the green one just to the west is the Nandazan Shrapinikwe Nature Sanctuary, current nature sanctuary.
That's the Ojibwe, and it means respect for Mother Earth.
So the total acreage that we will be applying to the trust fund for the conservation easement is the red property and then also that green one. That's the way to maximize the dollars available and also the match contribution from the Conservancy. minus the 6 acres.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, minus the 6 acres.
So the actual number, when it's all added up, is 332 acres that will be included in the application to the trust fund. The 326, I think, comes from if you put all the decimal points in, it's 332.62, and I either did a fat finger thing or just conflated numbers in my head. That's where the 326 comes from. I revisited it after the planning commission meeting where more specific numbers were requested. 332 will be the application.
You said the green, can you point to what green, I mean, there's several green there.
It's the green one.
This-
Oh, on the west side of the,
That's right here.
Okay.
It's like right.
I figured it out when you said the name of it that I can't pronounce, so.
well, I can't even read
I
it.
can't.
Property?
What's that?
Is that right where the Wistrand property is?
bought it from
Walton and Hazel had properties all over our communities.
Yeah. And she actually approached us,
I would expect that she would have.
and she's real happy. We're happy. It's really a sensitive piece that should be preserved.
Right.
And it's actually the, right next to where the bald eagle is located, so any development in that area would chase those eagles right out of there, so.
So one of the things that I think is key with this development near the conserved property is when you're looking at placing workforce housing there, it has, as you mentioned, it has proximity for the infrastructure, the water and sewer, but it also has close proximity to the TART trail. And as well, just the quality of life that workforce housing will have. I mean, there could be that could go for quite a bit more, have a lot, more expensive structures on it. But the fact that it's being retained for workforce housing and has all those amenities, I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
And honestly, lots of times when we sit here as a board, we're like, well, what's the ask from us? So what does this mean? What's it boil down to for us? It means another DNR trust fund process. We're very familiar with that. We've done it almost every year for the past several years. If we are so fortunate to have this acquisition granted, there is not a dollar cost to us. There will be some personnel time and in working with the Conservancy and with their staff and making sure we get all of the documents filed correctly, because with the DNR, just like when we closed on Holiday Woodlands Natural Area, they want certain documents just so, boundaries,
Appraisals.
certain things,
Title work.
certified and filed with deeds, all of those things. But we've been through that process and we're capable of doing that. And as well to boot, we also have additional resources on this path with us. So I think it's really a great project. We would have the ability to extend the reach of Holiday Woodlands Natural Area and coordinate while yet not having the direct responsibility for maintenance, operation, and the infrastructure improvements for this property. So I'm having trouble seeing the downside, because I always like to take a look and recognize, right, what's the positive and what's the downside. But I think this is really a great proposal that the Conservancy and you, Glenn, have put together. So I appreciate your work on this. Are there questions for Glenn and for Charlie? And I would mention one other thing. When you go into the DNR trust fund process, this is solidified enough. While there are certain things like we don't have it surveyed or that, that type of thing. When you're looking at the acreage on this is solidified enough to go forward into the DNR trust fund process. That is a 9-month process, and they have different key points along it where you have to prove certain things, like you have to prove your match or, that type of thing. So we have still a lot of time in this, not to get the application in, we need to get that going, but for some of the other particular fine points. And I guess to that, I would even say, would we need some flexibility, do you think, in the resolution as far as the amounts? So for example, would it be appropriate or unnecessary to ask the board to approve the resolution with maybe the ability to amend the request and the match, as well as the acres by, say, a 10% threshold, so that as you're going over the next 6 weeks and you're like, oh, that's 364 acres or whatever, that we can amend that before we put that in.
It says approximately before the acreage.
Well, that is true. That is true.
Yeah, I think we're good on the 4.5 million. The only question is, do you feel like you have enough for the reimbursement of your cost? Because you can aim a little high, and you can always adjust downward when you have a precise number, but you can't go up once the application is in.
Yeah.
And that's why we talked about whether there would be property taxes.
That was my concern, was taking it on as the first year, we would be liable for those taxes.
Well,
Actually, we would be,
Well, okay, someone would be.
yeah.
but I mean, it's going to, eventually, the property is going to be retained in perpetuity for the public, so it would fall under
It'd be tax exempt.
Exactly.
The 6 acres will not be tax exempt. And down the road, I think that's going to more than make up for any loss in property tax revenue, if you do the math.
So other questions for Glenn? How does the board feel about the project and the proposal?
It's a beautiful piece of property. And you're right, it's unique and, lived here all my life, been around, I don't live too far from it. I've never been up on the ridge, but I've been in some of that property.
Love to take you up there sometime.
In fact, probably shouldn't say this, but I think my great-grandfather probably logged it off back in the 1850s.
Wouldn't doubt it.
So,
Some nice timber.
but
Is this all,
Oh, hold on one second. He was just making a comment.
sorry. It is beautiful. I'm truly hoping you create enough public access to it. And I don't mean to, but I know with the Holiday Woodlands part, for instance, there's not a very good parking lot for the public to go park.
And
So I would like to make sure that does happen, that there is access to it.
Yeah. We're actually, Matt, we're actually looking at 2 access points. One next to where the 6 acres is, because you can come right in on Pine Brook off of 5 Mile, or you can come in via the Tart Trail. And another one, we're looking at an access on 5 Mile, right across from the access to Holiday Woodlands. So that would be, that would be over here.
Yeah.
So I think that we're definitely committed to providing sufficient access. We think this is going to be one of the most popular utilized recreation areas of its kind in the whole region. Because where else can you go and stand on a hill 300 feet and see all the way to the western, the eastern shore of Lake Michigan in Leelanau County? I had Jerry Olson up there. I'm sure you guys know Jerry. Jerry's in his 90s. So we drove him up there to the picnic table at the top of the hill. Jerry got out of the vehicle, and I specifically walked him over to the money view, where you can see all of Traverse City, Sugarloaf, all of the bay, all the way up to Charlevoix. It was a perfect, crystal clear day. The bald eagle took off just at the right moment. Jerry could not speak for about 5 minutes. And thankfully, I kept my mouth shut and just let him absorb it, which is Rare, right, Colby? Maybe I'm learning after all these years. And Jerry looked over at the end of the 5 minutes, and I could just hear him gasp, and he said, "Glenn, I've lived here all my life. I had no idea anything like this existed. This is the greatest view I've ever seen." And he grew up, Wayne Hill on the other side. But Wayne Hill does not match this view for grandeur and for everything. And Jerry said, "Glenn, you guys got to save this." And he said, "Get people up here and it'll sell itself."
The only other statement I'd say, and I know you're probably committed to that, but I certainly hope you commit yourself to preserving the view from the point of view that you just don't let the forest grow up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because that's happened many times before, where they build an oversight and overlook, and they let the trees grow up, and why'd you build the overlook?
Charlie, how clear have I made that to the stewardship staff?
Okay, good.
And in fact, it will be an affirmative right in the conservation easement that keeping that field down below the top of that view will probably turn it into like a wildflower meadow or something with pollinators. And then that'll have its own beauty. But then you won't be confining it to a winter view only. You'll have a four-season view year-round. I agree, Matt. It's critical.
That's my last statement. When I seen the $11 million, it just makes you go, oh, God, what are they really thinking here? But, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but once it's gone, it's gone. And as Will Rogers said, they're not making any more of it, particularly a property of this magnitude.
Well, and the nice part for us, you mentioned Holiday Woodlands Natural Area, with it being straight across the roadway, is you might recall, we have a Rotary grant for the planning of that property, and that has had a stakeholder engagement group, plus been out for a survey, and that, I believe in the next 2 weeks, is coming back to the stakeholder group to do some planning on that. So, and what will happen from that Rotary grant and that work that's being done, that planning work, is where are the trailheads going to be? Where is the parking lot going to be? What will the trails look like? Who will they service? And the nice part about this property is the Conservancy reached out as well, your other staff, about understanding where we were at with the Holiday Woodland Natural Area property and what some of the general feedback was, so that they kind of knew. We don't know what the end result will be because we're not finished with the public engagement. There will be an open house. But, for some general idea of what some of the survey responses said, so that they can have an idea of what that property might be utilized for. So there'll be some nice synergy with those two properties.
Yes.
Glenn?
Yeah, I guess I was just gonna ask, is this ridge part of the, Generations property that
Yeah.
they had that went to Hammond?
Yeah.
Manual.
And how
Yeah.
far on the south end of this ridge are you from Hammond Road?
From here to here, well, let's see, that's a mile, so it's a little less than a mile. So you've got 4 miles here, 3 miles here, that's about a mile. It's a little less than a mile. Now, actually, the highest point on the ridge property is right about here. And then the viewpoint, the view area that the Sen family cleared when they were thinking about developing it is right about here. So there's spectacular views. Here, looking to the west, in fact, you can see right over what used to be the Mitchell Forest, which is now Mitchell Creek Meadows, the Don and Jerry Olson Nature Preserve. You can see the whole thing. It's just, if you'll never fail to appreciate how beautiful East Bay Township is. Layout at that level and at that view, it's just spectacular.
The other thing is, as you mentioned, I'm sorry, were you done with your question?
No,
Your
I'm
question or comment? As you talked about balancing, right? This allows you to have some workforce housing, or, be supportive of workforce housing, and drive your mission, which is conserving the property in perpetuity. It also allows us, as a township, this project that you're bringing allows us to do the same thing on a larger scale with East Bay Township. So as we have property owners who have their right to develop under the zoning ordinance, whether it's use by right, and they certainly have a right to do that, or special land use, which they can under certain criteria with the Planning Commission, we do have tremendous development pressures in East Bay Township. So those things that will be allowed, and some of them that must be allowed, depending on the project, this allows us to balance that nicely.
Yeah, and not only balance, but don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg. Your recreation, your water quality, your forested areas that provide wildlife corridors. These are things that, this is why people want to live in East Bay Township. Yes, we got to allow for housing where it makes sense, and there's plenty of places where it makes sense. But I don't know, you've seen some of the ridge developments west of town where they just basically clear cut everything, and so much of the runoff just came crashing down into West Bay. What a shame it would have been for that to happen here.
Any other comments or questions? So with that, we would be on resolution number 2. So this would be 2025-02. I would ask if there is a motion to approve that resolution, as well as giving us a 10% threshold to adjust any figures that we need to. We could even take that down to 5% if that's the board's comfort level. But I don't want to tie our hands too much with that.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion by M. Cortate and support by Lyle. Any further discussion or clarification on the motion?
I would just like to say I thank you for making the changes from the Planning Commission tonight. It made things a lot easier to understand. I just will tell the board that last week they didn't have the 6 acres drawn out on a map in any way, shape, or form to show us what they were talking about. So it was kind of like the 6 random acres on this. So they've done a lot of work between then and now. The other thing that I'll point out is that, the numbers, it says 313 here, and it says 300 here, and it says 326 here, and now it's 334. That description that Charlie gave really helped to understand it a lot more than what I had on last Tuesday night. So I really appreciate the work that you've done since last week.
Thank you, Mindy. And we will be getting it served pronto, right? So we will provide an actual surveyed copy of everything to the township as soon as we have it.
Don't doubt that. It just wasn't making a whole lot of sense.
I'm glad you asked those questions, because it spurred Charlie on to do his homework. So thank you.
So with that, if there's no other comments or questions, Ann will take a roll call vote on the motion.
Sure. M. Cortate?
Yes.
Lyle?
Yes.
Bartlett?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
S. Cortate?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes. All right, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate working with you.
Well, we do too. It's a great partnership, and we, rest assured, we will keep you posted all the way. But you guys have given us wind in our sails as we get ready for the trust fund process.
December will be a great
Down the
meeting.
road this year.
December will be a good meeting. Knock on wood. Thank you. Okay, with that, and thank you for the board's consideration on that. That's a great, big project, so. We will move to item C, that is the job descriptions. You have an overview in your packet. that has the 3 positions that were approved for budgeted in the fiscal year 2025 budget. You have the range that I'm looking at, given some of the information that I found. And with that, you have the descriptions attached, and looking to see a approval of the job descriptions and the associated wage ranges for the part-time office manager, part-time communication specialist, and intern. And as I mentioned in this overview sheet, once those positions are posted and interviews are done, the recommendation would come back with, hopefully, someone who fits the position great, and it would have their wage associated with that too, which would be within that range. So are there questions, comments, or a motion?
I have just a couple of comments, if you
Sure.
can bear with me. On the one for the office manager, I know that this is a greatly appreciated position. We have all felt the loss over the last few years of having one retire, having one pass away. The workload has largely gone on the treasurer's office, and so this will be a great help and asset in that manner. But when looking at the different bullet points, I just want to make sure that we do take into consideration that the outgoing and incoming mail in the township drop boxes, we would exclude the elections drop box.
Sure.
And the mail that is the military and overseas, they should be clearly marked, but there has been instance where those have been almost opened by someone that wasn't
Yeah.
supposed to open them. We don't even get to open those. Those get opened by the absentee counting board during that process with a Republican and Democrat together very deliberately.
Sure.
And so that is something I would strongly recommend we eliminate or designate as that is not part of that duty.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely, this does not obviously mention elections because that is handled by your office. So we would do that with training for sure with the office personnel.
And then the other one is the onboarding of new employees, elected officials, and appointed officials.
Where are we at on here?
It's the second or the third one above the knowledge, skills, and ability.
Oh, sure,
I would strike that as far as my office can adequately handle that onboarding process.
Oh, this is handling a lot of the stuff that I do for onboarding, which is making sure that they have access to, like the computer, the door codes, things that they can help me with.
You did mention those separately in a different spot.
Okay.
So when I look at this,
I did not mean in HR way, because, well, and actually you do payroll, so it's not anything to do with
well,
payroll.
But I also do all of those HR paperwork, making sure that if they need a
Sure.
job screen, that's taken care of.
Yeah,
both
the office manager wouldn't do that. They wouldn't even have
I
the
just wanted to make sure that it was maybe more specifically stated that what the engagement is instead of that broad statement.
Sure, and we can do, and it does say assist in it, doesn't say, completes it. So, yeah, they would be helping, coordinate the appointment to meet with you, or helping me make sure that they have, or others have the computer access or emails that they should have, and so
Right,
forth.
And I don't have any of those aren't granted to my office, for sure, but I just want there to be no misunderstanding.
Sure. Any others?
No.
Okay. Any other questions? Yep, Mindy?
The intern.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious in the term of the position, if you were thinking of, a 6-month intern or a 3-month intern.
Yeah.
My other thought is it says salary at 18, but on the cover page you have a range of 16 to 18. And my third comment is we're requiring somebody that has graduated from high school. By that, they're an undergraduate. Does it really need to be somebody that has graduated from high school, or can it be a high schooler?
I think the quality of what we would want would probably have some undergraduate skills to it. I don't know that I foresee that with a high school student. So let me take one at a time. That $18 range, you're correct in that I should put the 16 to 18 here. I had filled out this page much earlier than I had filled out this one, so I can make that correction. And as far as, I do think that we'll want some undergraduate school, someone who is able to operate a little bit more independently. And I think that that'll be important. If I had a high school student, and I'm pretty familiar, I'm familiar enough with high school students, that I think it would be a little bit too much oversight that either I or Claire would have to provide, and we have limited time to do that. Specifically, one of the things that brought this to my attention was a couple things. One is the passing of a couple East Bay Township residents who have a lot of historical knowledge, and they're just getting older and older. And I would like for someone who can do like either an oral history with them or a video history with them and get that on the books to save. It may not be utilized right then, but it'll be part of the volume of material that they will put together, so that we don't lose any more of those people and all the information that goes with them. I'm pretty sure we can all relate to, a relative who's gone, and we wish that we had been able to ask them other questions. And then the other thing is, not that I'm putting anything on your age, Glenn, or yours, Matt. I mean, you guys have a lot of historical knowledge, and I think that they would be worthwhile for them to visit with you. The other thing was, do you remember we had an intern here, Jake, and I'm trying to think of his last name, and I can't, Myers, thank you. And Jake, when we were working with him, found out he was a history major he was at Michigan. But I saw this too with another university as well. They require their undergrad history majors to do a project or an internship. And specifically, his project was to document a history of something in like a video and audio format. And I thought that would be a treasure trove to have. And we could do this, this year, we could delay this to next year or even the year after, and I'm fine with that. I just don't want to lose any more of that history.
I'm fine with that. I just want to double check because, a lot of the stuff, I didn't grab in reading this that you were expecting somebody to go out and interview people.
Yeah.
I didn't see that in here, but the scanning and looking at the historical research document piece, I think that there's some highly qualified juniors and seniors in high school that could do that kind of project, if you will,
Yeah.
especially if you have a shorter term and,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But I would like to see a term on here, whether it's 6 months or 3 months, so that somebody doesn't think that this is going to be their forever job.
No, sure, that's fine. And I guess I had interpreted intern to kind of limit that, but I think that we can do that. We have had Jake worked here for longer than the internship, so on a part-time basis, but a little bit different, but still the same, the points made.
But applying for a 6-month,
Yeah.
it's a 6-month, and it might fit into their college schedule for that 6-month term or whatever.
What I want to be able to leave open, though, is the exact months. Like, my point
Oh,
is,
yeah,
I didn't want to make the internship like, this is May 15th through August 15th, or something like that, because some students, especially if they have, their last semester, they might have some video or whatever classes that they have some flexibility. They might be able to start in April or March or something like that. I wanted to leave that open. I plan on listing the typical ways that we do all postings, but also directly contacting like Michigan, Western Michigan, Central, those universities and their history departments to let this out there.
Yeah, I'm fine with all of you, but I would
I think-
suggest a term
I
on here.
think we put, for example, duration of, not to exceed 6 months. And then that way, if they, say perhaps they have a longer period of time but have less hours per, they can fit that in. If they have a shorter period of time and can work more hours, that works for them too. Did you have something, Sue?
I just wanted to add, this is exactly what, when we sat on the CIP committee and the Black Schoolhouse came available, so in 2010, this is exactly what I presented to the board with the acquisition of the schoolhouse and making a historical society or center where we could do all of that video recording of that history and have it be available. The board did not feel the financial ability to do that at that time, but it has been longstanding, something I've really wanted to get a grasp of, because East Bay will lose
A lot of
all that
history.
historical knowledge.
We already have.
Yeah,
Of course we have.
Yep.
Of course we have. In the almost 15 years since I presented it, a third or more are gone.
so, one of the things I look, like, I envision their body of work, and I have talked with one history major from a university, and asking them about, well, how does this work? Are you required to have an internship? Not, or, anyway. And what they had told me was that they actually had to do their internship through a historical, I don't even know what you call it. Yeah, exactly. Or, museum. I'm sorry, museum. And so I thought to myself, I wonder if I'll run up against that with other applicants. And so my thought with that was to get a hold of the Traverse City Historical, is that a society? Society, yeah. And get a hold of them and see if they'll kind of bless our internship, and then also we will allow them to have the information as well. And so that way, this would truly fit for what history departments are looking for at universities. But that's something I'll have to find out when I contact the university departments to list the internship with them. Yeah.
Just a suggestion, when you hire a person, probably the first place they probably ought to look is Traverse City Library. They've got genealogy, whole department, they've got books, papers, everything that go way back, so,
Yeah.
that would probably be the first place to check. I don't know what, colleges have on, but we've even got papers around here, and I probably got a copy of it when East Bay East Bay and Whitewater give property to create Acme Township back in the 1800s. So that's probably where they want to start and go from there.
Don't tell Acme that now, because then they'll say, well, we're part of East Bay, you can take care of the whole sewer bill coming up.
I bump them every time I see them.
Well, at a minimum, I expect to see good things out of this internship because we're investing in it. But I will be happy with kind of a nice overview of the township and its history, and then some supporting resources that are like those video diaries or verbal diaries or written diaries. Just to have that body of information, I think will be helpful. So,
One comment, do you need to, in the requirements, do you need to include driver's license and reliable mode of transportation? If somebody's going to be going around and interviewing people?
sure, I can do that. I would imagine they do it here, but you're right in that I probably will have them get trained with Leah and use their equipment, and so they would have to go up to, I think they moved their
We have a
offices.
TriCaster here too, that would be more mobile. But, yeah, the
So-
overall Logan's Landing.
Is that where they moved to? Okay, I didn't know where they moved to, so.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was just thinking the people you're talking about interviewing, there may be some, unique cases where they may not be able to travel from where they're
Right,
at to be
Their mobility is
interviewed. Yeah.
extremely limited. once
Yeah,
they get
that's
that
true,
far.
that's true. Okay, so we will put a driver's requirement on here as well. We'll do a standardized one that we either have on another application, or we'll pull one from another township if I can't find one on one of ours. Other questions or comments? If there's not, I would be looking for a motion to approve the job descriptions and the associated wage ranges for the part-time office manager, part-time communication specialist, and intern.
I'll make,
Clarification.
With the-
Cover sheet is the wages you're requesting, not each job description, correct? Because you made the comment that they weren't consistent. So we want to make sure that what you put on your cover sheet is the ones that are going to be transposed over to
Well, these,
the job description.
they are consistent for the communication specialist and the office manager.
So office manager, it's not.
it's 20.
It's just off by $1.
Oh, is it, let's see, where are we? 21 to 27, and we have 22 to 27. So I'll put that at 21 and leave that more range there. And then the other one was 16 to 18, with a not to exceed the 6 months, and to have the driver requirements on there.
I'll make that motion with those amendments.
Okay.
Support.
Motion by Walters, support by Cook. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? Okay, motion moves forward, thank you. Appreciate that. We will move forward to the item D, fiscal year 2025, water and sewer rates. This starts on page 150, and you can see the current water rates that are there, as well as the recommended rates. That 3.5% is what is in our amendments to the ordinances, and I've included those with you there. And so I'm looking to move to approve the updated water and sewer rates through the 3.5% adjustment per those establishments. Is there comments or questions?
When is this going to take effect, if it's approved?
So they contacted me for the 2025, so I don't think that they've built out yet for their January, but even if it'll be close.
Yeah.
And if it is, then we'll have it effective their next billing, the first billing of 2025.
But, question,
Yes.
originally I thought that we approved this and we had a vote not to raise it every year at the beginning of the year, the water and sewer rates.
It was, if I remember, it's been a long time since we've actually dealt with it on an annual basis, because we've pretty much said we didn't need it. It would automatically go 3.5% unless we said no.
Exactly.
But they always check with us, and we were bringing it before the board every year.
Yep.
We had stopped because the board had decided in the budget process that we didn't need it. But at this point, because of the new sewer rates and the projects going on, I think that's why we were recommended to start it up again.
Okay, and I don't have a problem with voting on it. The only thing is that there's a resolution out there someplace that said that we would raise it 3.5% every year unless
there,
we
yeah.
decided not to.
It's on the amendments.
Yeah.
It's on the amendments. I couldn't,
She
I
presented.
Yeah, I couldn't find a resolution. I thought there was something like that too. I couldn't find it, but I was able to find these. And I recalled when Dawn did her rate analysis and we were like, okay, are we fine? Are we not fine? And if you recall, she said, you are fine right now. She said, but I would start the next year doing your 3.5% every year.
Like you were supposed to.
So that's what we're doing here. And, yeah.
It's the last sentence on each of these ordinance amendments. It says we would do that January 1 and increase.
So does that mean you'll make the motion?
I think I made that.
Is there support for the stated motion on page 150?
I'll support it.
Motion by Lyle, supported by Bartlett, to update the water and sewer rates for 3.5% adjustment per the established amendments. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? Okay, that motion passes, thank you. And we are at, we go back to, on page 83, we have item number 5, which is the election assistant offer of employment.
Don't we have,
What's that? Do we have something else too did I miss another agenda item?
no, I messed up, sorry.
That's okay. Page, what did I say it starts on? Page 83. Okay, so with that, you have in front of you, we approved, I think it was at last month's meeting, the job description, and then Sue has conducted some interviews, and she has an offer of employment for consideration by the board. Is there discussion or comments?
So, correct me if I have two comments. One, it was only placed, or shouldn't say only, it was placed or posted on our website, the clerk's website, and the clerk's Facebook. So not open to where people that weren't clerks would necessarily see it. Don't we usually put it, I know our website is open, don't we usually put it in the Record Eagle?
We would, but I looked at it as this is an election related, and the only budget we had was for the wages and the payroll tax. There was nothing in that budget for any publication of any kind. So that's why.
Oh, we don't usually budget a publication, though.
I guess I would have liked to have seen it open to where more people than just clerk-related people would have seen it.
So Michigan Works is where we have to put it, that's where I put the ambulance, part-time and full-time. You go on their website and we post it on there, and I think it says that in our personnel manual. I don't know if it says the newspaper or not in there. I could be wrong on that, I'm not sure. I do know it says Michigan Works, though.
Okay, I couldn't find, and when I was briefly looking for it, I couldn't find it. I just was surprised that it wasn't out where people that weren't already connected to elections would see it. And then isn't Candace?
She's Holly's daughter.
Yeah,
There's no mistaking that. But Holly is an appointed official excluded from the nepotism, as, when you look at the nepotism policy.
okay.
It
I
excludes
didn't
Deputy
read,
clerk, deputy treasurer, in that consideration.
I did have
Okay.
an ask about the nepotism policy, so I do have copies if you want it.
because I
You do
didn't
need
read it, that
Do you have a copy with you, Sue?
somebody that was hired in, I took it that the elected or appointed person is exempt from the nepotism policy, but not somebody hired. Sorry.
So I was asked about the nepotism policy. So I looked at it. It is not worded the best. However, I did forward this to legal counsel and had a discussion with them. And they're looking at it, they do not believe that, they believe that the no person, where it says no person is to be considered eligible, it's that person who the exceptions are meant for. So that would not, in this case, this hire would not agree with the anti-nepotism policy. So as I said, this isn't the best worded policy, and my understanding, and legal counsel confirmed this, is when you do a nepotism policy, you can't just say, and I'm not talking about this instance in perspective right now, I am talking about if we were to reword this policy. You can't just exclude everybody from being related, because there's constitutional issues with that. What you have to do is be very specific about it. So the court case that kind of brought this up was a municipality did not hire somebody because their sibling was in a different department. And so they didn't hire the person. Actually, I think it was for like a lifeguard or something. And the sibling was in a different department. And the nepotism policy said you cannot be related, no way, no how. And that went through the court system, and it held that was too restrictive to say you just can't have any siblings at all possible ever working together. What can be allowed is that they could not maybe be in the same department, and that you cannot have one like reporting to the other, then that makes it justifiable not to have a sibling, or I'm sorry, not a sibling, but a relation working together. So we would have to take a look at that. And if you look, I looked at Grand Traverse County's policy, and it kind of says the very, very similar thing, that you can't have one in a role with that reports to the other. And I think theirs might say the same department as well, but that was what some of the other ones had showed too, so.
And how does that work with the statutory office? That might need to be looked at as well.
So with the statutory office, well, you two are related, and there isn't anything that you
No,
can't
it's
have a.
elected. It's not a statutory office, these are elected positions by the public.
Right.
Totally different.
That's what I'm saying, though, is like you can't, on a board, an elected position, you obviously can't do anything like that. I'm sorry, what was your question?
It's not a luxury, it's not an employment position as much as it's to assist with the statutory duties of the office. And, let me make sure I have my words chosen well. The limited capability that is directed from this board for this position is not going to entice very many people to apply for it in the first place. By your encouragement, I did reach out to the two ladies that did get qualified to work on the qualified voter file that had been working in the office in 2024, and asked if they would be interested with the position. I also posted it, as it said, on the website and on the state server for clerks and on the Facebook page. Both of the ladies that worked for us had an interest, although one could not submit anything because of family obligations. So that left the one that you see. There was one other applicant that sent a letter of interest. I have not heard any other peeps from them with all the reaching out that I have done. They are no longer in the clerk's office, although that's not what their letter of interest said. They left the clerk's field. They did not deal with the qualified voter file. They were in the village realm of things. They are now appointed as a deputy supervisor. I'm thinking that's taking more of their interest than submitting anything else to follow up to, or to do an interview. That's what I got. It's a very unique situation. I don't believe I've ever not been upfront with the fact that Candace is Holly's daughter. Alicia was in a long-term relationship with my nephew. I've never made that and something I can say out loud. I even introduced you to him at that point in time. But the situation is different. If this board does not see fit to allow Candace to be in this position, I'll go back to the drawing board. But I find it extremely frustrating when there are positions being added and supplemented that are not statutory with hours and wages that enhance for the community. All valid. I voted for it. I've always voted for the betterment of the community. But this has been a very frustrating process for someone that's asked for help of any kind to help with recommendations from the Michigan Townships Association, from the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks, through the East Regional Clerks Association group, from myself, to help make sure that nothing gets left by the wayside for our residents. A $12,000 a year position is helpful. But the hoops to get to that point, people are going to want to do something different. They're going to want to be the office manager. They're going to want to be the social media person. They're going to want to do those other things because the compensation is there, not the additional requirements to do the duties, the statutory duties in the clerk's office. This board has, the purse strings. They have the way to say yes or no. But I've been here 19 years. I don't ask for much. I do the job that is before me. I do it well. I am respected. I am looked to from my peers as a mentor, as someone that can assist them. I train others. I counsel others to do the job that I love. And I find this extremely frustrating that this board wants to tie my hands and tie the hands of the office. I appreciate the time.
Other comments, questions?
Not, this is a general question is, in the future, I would like to see every position that's going to be hired brought to the board under an agenda item. And that includes fire, EMS. I know we've got to the point where we say, well, yeah, just put it on consent calendar. But it bothers me to see them put on the consent calendar rather than brought so we can have a discussion.
Well, I think with a lot of positions, and I understand what you're saying, and that's fine, we can certainly do that. But I think with a lot of positions, it's like an EMT versus an EMT. We don't even, I think we give the discretion to the person to hire within the policies and the wages and the job description. I think with this violates the nepotism policy. We can certainly bring that forward.
I guess I'd agree with you. It does definitely violate the nepotism policy. And I guess I don't know this person. I know your deputy. I think your deputy's great. Nothing against anybody. But what keeps coming back to me is back in 2004, and I think we all know what I'm talking about, and I just never want to see us open ourselves up to ever be in that position. Not that we were going to, but so.
That was more cronyism than it was nepotism.
Well, that's fine. Call it what you want, but you know what I'm talking
Well, I
about.
definitely know what
We all do.
long before you did.
So, the thing is that, under nepotism policy, I couldn't support this.
So why don't I go ahead and withdraw it? Obviously, there isn't support to move it forward.
If that's what you would like to do, we can do that.
My hands are tied, Beth. That's what I will do. Instead of for being turned down, I will withdraw.
That's your prerogative.
Yes, it is. It's the one thing I can control at this point with this board.
Okay, we will not take any action on item 5 and move forward to public comment. Is there public comment? Jill, do you have any public comment? Oh, you don't have to make public comment, but you're welcome to.
Jill Bernardi, East Bay Township, Rennie View Road. I came here tonight with the expectation that you would approve the Conservancy purchase. I'm so proud of all of you. I really am. I'm thankful to Glenn for making it work. I'm thankful to all of you. It's fantastic. So that's why I came here. I bitch a lot up here, but I also want to commend you. That is really a good deal. The other comment I have is, let's find a way, somebody find a way to help her. I don't know what that is, but I don't know that it's hiring against a policy. I just mean, maybe get more creative, because that office needs help. And I've noticed that, so it's just support for your comments. But truly, just to thank you all for doing a great job.
Well, thank you. We always appreciate comments, whether they are bitching or whether they are appreciative of things. We listen to them both the same.
Okay, great.
So,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
your time.
Absolutely. We do have an upcoming meeting. We do have a joint meeting next week. Does anybody have the date on that? It is the 18th? All right, February
Closed Monday.
18th. Yes, and now, with our new staff in assessing, turning, over from the county, I have to remember to tell them we're closed on President's Day, because not everybody is. But, all right, so February 18th, and then March 10th is the next Township Board meeting. And with that, if there are no,
There's also a breakfast on the 19th.
The Beach
At
District.
the beach, for the
Thank
beach
you.
district on Wednesday morning. Is that right?
Yep, at Harbor Brook.
That would be the 19th.
At Harbor Brook.
Yep, very good, thank you.
No.
9 a.m.? I'm pretty sure it's 9 a.m. It's 9 a.m., yeah.
What do they have for breakfast?
You'll just have to come and
No
find
eggs
out.
anymore.
Yeah, we can't afford the eggs anymore.
Oh, here's the email.
Last time it was bagels.
Yeah, usually they do something kind of light that you can,
Yeah.
9 a.m.
9 a.m., perfect. They do always have coffee, because I know we get the leftover coffee this year, so if you don't get coffee there, you can come here and get coffee. All right, with that, if there are no objections, then we stand adjourned. Thank you, and have a good evening, everybody.